Maybe Mr. Zimmerman, if we can turn it over to you at this point.
All right, it's been a while, so bear with me, but October 20th, 2020, we will start the meeting at 7:07 p.m. Take a roll call. Myself, Greg Zimmerman here. Joe Peterson is not present. Corey Colquist.
Here.
Tracy Lundeen.
Here.
Valerie.
Valerie's not available this evening.
Okay. Samuel Clark.
Here.
And do we have Wayne here too, or no?
I'm here.
And Greg, we do have a new member this evening, Shannon Sweeney Jorgensen. She's joining us for the first meeting this evening.
Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you.
So that means you have 5 and that would make a quorum?
Yes, we do have a quorum this evening.
Okay. I won't be voting then.
Do I need a motion to approve the agenda for this evening?
I'll make a motion, Lundeen.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. We need approval of the minutes from our last meeting, September 22nd, 2020.
Sam Clark, I'll motion to approve the meeting minutes from last meeting.
Okay. Anybody second that?
I'll second. Colquist.
Is there anybody present to make public comment on any item not otherwise listed on the agenda? No? Okay. Hear none. Do we roll right into the public hearings then?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman.
All righty. Item 5A, you want to give us a rundown on that?
Great, thank you. Item 5A this evening is a subdivision application to create a flag lot in an R3 zoning district. The applicant is Mr. James Rodland. The property is located off of Ugstad Road. It's an existing lot of record. Joel, if I could, can you give me control, or do you want to?
Yep, hold on just a second.
How many things
Okay.
we're gonna have to go through before we hear about this thing?
And Eric, if I end up giving it to Wayne as opposed to you, Wayne, just tell me. Oh,
City of Hermantown is host down.
I'm gonna send it over to Eric.
Yep, I believe I have it now. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you, Eric.
So as I mentioned, what's on your screen before us, I'm assuming everyone can see this. Joe, could you verify that that is indeed the case?
Yep,
Thank you. This is a location map of the subject property. As I mentioned, it's located off of Ugstad Road and just south of Roosevelt Drive. This is an existing Jackson home that is located on that property right now. What I'm now bringing up is, I'm going to bring up the actual flag lot associated with this. And as you can see, this is a fairly long existing lot that we have in the city. The existing parcel size is 4.13 acres. As I mentioned, there is an existing home and garage as well as an outbuilding on this site. The applicant is proposing to subdivide this lot into 2 parcels. The parcel A which would still contain that existing home, garage, and outbuilding, is approximately 0.52 acres in size. It would meet the city requirements of the minimum lot width of 100 feet, as well as the lot depth of 225 feet. The lot that's being proposed to being created this evening, that flag lot, that's located to the north and to the west of this. The north portion of the site is what's known as the pole portion of this flag lot. That contains the driveway that would access this future lot. This pole portion is 40 feet wide and 220 feet long. Both of them do meet the underlying requirements for a flag lot. Minimum frontage is 30 feet. This has 40. Maximum depth of the pole portion is 500 feet. This is 225. And then as you go to the rear of that site, parcel B is proposed to be 3.61 acres in size. On that parcel B, that's where a future residence may be constructed at sometime in 2021. The applicant does not have a particular timeline associated with that. The applicant would be required to meet the required zoning setbacks associated with an R3 property. So there would be a minimum of a 50-foot setback that would be from the rear of parcel A. And there'd be a minimum of a 10-foot side yard setback with an aggregate of 25 feet. That's both from the Roosevelt Road properties and then the home down to the south. And then the minimum rear yard setback is 40 feet. But as I'd mentioned, this is an extremely deep lot at this point. This future lot is approximately 1,060 feet in size. And as I mentioned, it's a 3.61 acres in size. Both the existing or parent property as well as the future flag lot do meet the requirements of the city's ordinance as they pertain to a flag lot creation. At this point, that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions from any of the commission members at this time.
Sam Clark, I have no questions.
There's no questions at all. Anybody have any? Sir, I don't know if there is anybody from the public joining us tonight or.
I know that the applicant was not available. I've not received any calls from member of the public, but do not know if anybody online this evening wanted to speak to this directly or not.
Yeah. Alrighty, then I guess we're looking for a motion.
Did you open it up? I think somebody does want to speak.
Okay.
I think there's a few of us that want to speak.
We're still on the flight line.
Somebody waiting to speak? If you're waiting to speak, go ahead and state your name and your address. Go ahead and ask your question.
I guess I'll speak. I was waiting for my husband. My name is Kenria Perel, and I live at 5338 Roosevelt Drive. My husband is Mike Perel. He's on this call, but his microphone must not be working. We've bought this lot and built our home here about 17 years ago. And when we bought this lot, you could tell by the zoning of the lot behind us that theoretically it would be woods behind us. And so that's part of the reason why we chose to build here. I think many of our neighbors have been the same for quite some time. And I know there's other neighbors on the call, and I've spoken with other neighbors who kind of have similar feelings about that. But I guess that's what I have to say. I'm not sure if there's more that we can say or do, but I guess I would say that I'm opposed to this rezoning.
And just to clarify for everyone, this is not a rezoning in front of us this evening. This is still an R3 zone property. This is a creation of a flag lot that would carry the characteristics of a R3 zoning district for it.
So my name is Michelle Emmy. I'm actually Kenria's next door neighbor. I guess I have a question. Would the person who owns that lot now, if they wanted to keep, let's just say another family member came to town and they wanted to build a house and they just keep starting to build, subdivide and keep building houses all the way back, is that a possibility?
This is Eric Johnson. No, the ordinance only allows for the creation of a single flag lot. Does not allow for any future subdivisions of that lot. The city ordinance only allows one dwelling unit per lot. So at most, there would be this created lot this evening if it passes, and there would be one home. There would not be the ability to create future homes or future subdivisions at any date in the future.
Is there a restriction as to what type of home can go there?
As long as it meets our minimum square footage, which I believe is 792 square feet, and is greater than, I believe it's 14 feet in width, we have no restrictions as far as the type of homes. You could not put a trailer back there. Any homes have to be affixed to a permanent foundation, whether it's a slab or some sort of a block foundation.
My address. I'm at 5330 Roosevelt.
Thank you. Anybody else? If so, please state your name and your address. Any questions from the commissioners?
Well, actually, we do have, and Mike's iPhone is raising their hand.
Okay.
Believe Mike's iPhone, if you can hear us, if you could please state your name and address, please.
Excellent. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sorry, struggling with technology. My apologies. My name is Mike Perell, P-E-R-E-L-L. I live at 5338 Roosevelt Drive, part of Jackson Estates. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to voice my opinion. I appreciate that. I'll reiterate what my wife said. I did do a little research when I did buy my home lot back in 2012. I didn't do enough research regarding the option of flag lots. I always did find it interesting that the 3 lots that are behind me were over 1,000 feet deep and only like 150-ish feet wide. But I just thought that those were Jackson Estates homes, and that's what the city of Hermantown wanted to do to try to keep our city seem rural. I understand they're now legal. I learned a little bit about flag lots today that I did not know prior, so I appreciate sharing that information. The only thing that I'm interested in is that there's really not a land shortage in the city of Hermantown. There's plenty of land available, so I'm not sure why we think it's in our best interest to split lots up that are existed that way for I'm not sure how many years that Jackson Estate Homes lot was like that. I don't really ever want to tell somebody what they can or can't do with their property. You know, I don't envy you guys for having to make that decision. You know, I think everyone should get, they purchase that lot, they should get to do with what's legal. And apparently these flag lots are legal, but I'm not really sure that that's in the best interest of the city. And that's what we necessarily want to do, because in theory, what you're telling me based on the diagram you showed is that the 2 lots south of this lot could also do the same thing with the same 40-foot flag lot. And then there's 3.61 acres behind it. And then there would be these 3 homes, single family homes all back there. I'm not really sure that that's what the city of Hermantown wants, but I guess that's up to you guys to decide. So thanks for the time. I do appreciate it. Thanks.
Maybe if I can just add a little clarification for Mike's comments, and thank you for your comments, I appreciate it. Back in 2016, the city did change our ordinance to allow for flag lots. And honestly, they were specifically meant to help out these Jackson homes throughout the city, not just in this area, but a number of areas in the city. We have lots that are extremely deep. Some lots are up to 1,600 lineal feet deep. And like you said, anywhere from 130 to 190 that they, at the time, they did not meet the ability to subdivide under the R3 at that time. The city viewed this as an opportunity to add to some housing stock and still being able to utilize existing infrastructure that we had throughout the city. In the case of this lot, sewer and water is available on Ugstead Road. Generally, it would be no new infrastructure to have to be created in the ability to create a new housing lot within the city that way. And once again, this was viewed as a way to help property owners utilize some of these lots that are extremely deep throughout the city.
Thank you, Eric.
I have a question. My name is Jared Hinks. I live at 4128 LeBake Road, just I'm the 3rd house north of this proposed zoning or this development. I'm just wondering, what benefit does this have for the city? Is it a tax benefit? Is it greater than, because it seems to me that anything west of Stebner in Hermantown is more so, has been in the last 10 years, developments of homes that are really nice homes instead of this, very densely populated structures. And so I'm just wondering, what is the benefit for the city? It just seems to me that Hermantown's more about single family dwellings that are developments such as the one to the south of Mackenzie's there, what's that? I think it's Maple Maple Leaf Drive. And then after that question's answered, what benefit to the city is this? I also was wondering, why is the multiplex
Actually, sir,
on the north side of the lot?
Sir, if I could interrupt you, that's a later item for the agenda. We're on item
Oh, I'm sorry, I
5A.
came in late, so I thought you were talking about the proposed, the JP Holdings.
No, sir, that's last on our agenda this evening. That'll be
All right.
probably coming up in about 20 minutes to a half hour from now.
I spoke out of turn then, sorry. That's what I get.
That's
for
all right.
coming late.
Please offer your comments when that time comes
All right, I
around.
will. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Don Kalos. That's Kallos. I live at 4775 Anderson Road. Obviously, I do not live next to the property in question, but I do have a few comments. By my memory, is this the Jackson home that's like falling in, like the chimney's separated from the building and it's been abandoned for quite some time?
No, sir, that's located on Levake. That's at the intersection of Levake Junction and Levake. This home is over at Ugstead, just south of Jackson Estates First Edition.
Thank you for that clarification. The next one is, you mentioned that they could only put a single family home on there, a single family home. What would be the waiver process for them to put on, say, 2 or more houses?
As far as that particular lot, the flag lot only allows, per our ordinance, one single family home on it.
You waive ordinances quite regularly, though. Is there a process that they could put more than one on there?
Like I said, no further subdivisions of that lot could happen. Let's say they came in to try to do a twin home. They would have to meet the required setbacks associated for that. And dimensionally, it would be, it may be difficult to do something like that. But tonight, this is just a single family request for the creation of a new flag lot.
All right, thank you, sir.
We have Mike raising his hand here again. Mike's iPhone, please.
Hey, sorry, one more thing that one of the other callers made me think of. So I think we all remember the Jackson Estates wetlands issue. It's still probably all fresh in our minds, you know, and my lot was not affected as far as any of the wetlands that properties further west were. Is the city concerned about that lot and its potential wetlands and whether there's enough land of that 3.61 acres to place a home? And also what that's going to do to the existing wetlands issue around that area, how that will affect everything, you know, whatever quote unquote downstream of that? Is that a concern, or is that something that we deal with at a later date?
Like I said, just this evening, when the application would come in for the building structure, we'd verify where they want to locate that on the lot. Staff has looked at the National Wetland Inventory. It is not showing wetlands on this particular lot, at least in the area that the person has indicated they were interested in building. There may be some at the extreme western edge of it, but directly behind this existing home, generally where this person was indicating, that is all upland area per the National Wetland Inventory.
Thank you.
Clarify, it's just that half-acre parcel that's going to be attached to the flag lot, and then the other 3.6 behind it is just going to stay the way it is. Because the wetland right now, if you look at even your maps on the computer, it kind of starts behind my house and then fans out behind the Peral's house and further west. And it was always my thought that there was no way you could build on that lot. But what I understand, we're just talking about the half acre at the far end, closest to the existing structure, correct?
Well, like I said, right now, as long as we're just looking at the subdivision of land this evening, we're not looking for the location of a structure. If and when an application comes in for the building structure, we will review and verify all those things as well. Like I said, this evening is just a subdivision of land that's being discussed, not the location of the structure per se. And ma'am, could you give me your address and telephone, or not telephone, sorry, address and name again, just for the record?
Yep, my name is Michelle. Last name is Emmy, spelled E-M-M-E. And I'm at 5330 Roosevelt Drive.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question. This is Mike Yankovich. My son owns the house next door. His name is Marco. It's 4219 Ugstad Road. You showed on your print there, the driveway is going to be going to the north. Between his house and 4211. About where would that go? I mean, that 40 foot, is that going to be all driveway 40 feet or? Do you have any idea? I mean, and I'm sure there's setbacks for the road driveway for adjoining properties too, isn't there?
Yes, the driveway is viewed as a structure that way. It'd be a minimum of a 10-foot setback from that property line. So if your son's property is directly north of this, it'd be 10 feet south of his southerly property line.
And what's his plan for the driveway? A 40-foot wide driveway?
No, sir, you could not do that. The proposed lot is 40 feet in width. He has to keep a minimum of 10 feet from your son's southerly property line. Once again, we've not seen any sort of building application or driveway at this point. This is strictly about the subdivision of the land. But there'd be a minimum of a 10-foot setback for that driveway from that property line.
Oh, one more question. How is this going to affect the other properties around it, as in home values then? That shouldn't change anything, should it?
Generally, we don't look in the marketability that way. Hermantown properties have continued to rise through the years. This would be a brand new structure on a newly created residential lot.
Oh, well, thank you for all your information. It my son is at school, he can't make it, so I'm watching for him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric, it might be worth pointing out that with a 10-foot setback to the north and a 10-foot setback to the south, he could only have a 20-foot driveway.
That is correct. The absolute maximum width. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Well, if you can state your name and your address.
My name is Libby Vuxen, V as in Victor, UKSON. I'm at 5324 Roosevelt Drive. When you receive the actual building plans, will we be notified again so that we can see exactly where this is going to be?
No, you would not. This is strictly a building permit at that point. There's no public hearing, public notification for that. That's typically what we do in all residential building development.
So what I'm seeing here as parcel A, which I'm not sure whether that's the flag lot or not, it's behind the existing homestead. So it won't necessarily be right there.
It's the newly created flag lot. As long as they meet the minimum setbacks, which is 50 feet from what we'll call the eastern line, a minimum of 10 feet from the north and south lines for an aggregate of 25 feet total, and 40 feet from the western line, assuming there's not wetlands there, they can place a house anywhere within that. That's basically our buildable area associated with that lot.
Okay.
Connie leave? No.
Is there?
Oh, yeah, she moved.
Okay, if we can, I think we're ready here. If we can go ahead and somebody would like to make a motion on this, on item 5A.
Commissioner Zimmerman, this is Commissioner Colquist. Based on the facts that this flag lot meets and exceeds the city ordinance set forth in 2016, I move we approve agenda item 5A as stated.
Do I hear a second?
We have a second from Jorgensen.
Thank you. That passes. We'll move on to item 5B, especially.
Actually, Mr. Zimmerman, we'll need a vote on that, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, item 5A, we got a motion to approve. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? No opposes? All right. We good to move on, Eric?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Item 5B is 4747 Hermantown Road, special use permit, filling and grading in a shoreline overlay zone.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Zimmerman. The next three applications, item 5B, 5C, and 5D are all related. 5B and 5C are portions of the overlaying planned unit development, which is item 5D. So what we're going to do is take these one at a time. I'll walk you through each one of these and then move forward from there. I'm going to start sharing some content here with you.
I'm sorry, I've got actually, hold on a second. I've got 5B, 5C, and another 5B.
Yeah, I apologize on that. The Pillars of Hermantown. Actually, that's all. The last item is actually meant to be 5E. That's the Maple Grove project. So this is item 5B is a filling and grading in shoreland. 5C is a variance from building setback, and 5D is 4747 final planned unit development. But right now I'm going to start on item 5B. What I'm going to do is this is a location map associated with the property. This is the Ingwalls facility, which is located at 4747 Hermantown Road. Just what we're looking at this evening for all these items, 5B, C, and D, is going to be the northern 8.7 acres of this property. This is the land that is north of these existing buildings that you're seeing just below the word site. These all, once again, take place in that northern portion. That's primarily where the corn maze had been at the Ingwalls. This project would take access off of Anderson Roadway. And I apologize, I'm a little slow getting my graphics up here. So what you see here, this is the layout for the proposed final PUD that's going to be heard on item 5D. But what this graphic shows is the area of shoreland area associated with Keene Creek. On the map that you see, the line in green is the 300-foot shoreland area. To help people out, in each one of our creeks throughout the city, the Rocky Run, Keene Creek, Midway, etc., there are what's called shoreland areas associated with each one of those creeks or tributaries. On each one of those, per the state and the DNR, there's what's called a shoreland area or shoreland ordinance. The city adopted the shoreland ordinance as part of our basically comprehensive code of plans. So what it requires is anytime there's any sort of filling or grading activity within the shoreland area, it requires that there's a special use permit for it. The area that you see in the blue crosshatch, that is the area associated with that 300-foot area. As part of that filling and grading in shoreland, there's requirements as far as maximum amount of time that land can be left undisturbed without working the property, or you get into situations where you need to provide some sort of ground cover, whether it's temporary cover, straw, seed, etc. that way. This also sets forth different items associated with that special use permit. Each one of these, there's 5 different items associated with the special use permit. That the proposed development is compatible with development permitted under the general provision. This is work within an R3 zoning, it's compatible. The proposed use is not injurious or to the enjoyment of the environment or detrimental to the rightful use of the property. This is an allowed use within an R3 zoning under the PUD statute. The proposed area is consistent with the overall comprehensive plan. That is correct. This area is guided from the comprehensive plan is residential. Proposed area not result in random pattern of development. This is very similar to Keene Creek Townhomes, which is located just to the south of here, which actually has a number of more units associated than this potential development does. The applicant is going to be required to follow all the rules for grading and filling within the shoreland district. There will be no allowed impervious surface, clearing, grubbing, or grading, which would be allowed within 50 feet of the ordinary high water line of Keene Creek. They're not near that at all. The lowest elevation of the finished floor will have to be 3 feet above the ordinary high water level of Keene Creek. When buildings happen in this property, there'll be surveys performed to determine what that elevation is of each one of those homes. Right now, the way the topography is this land generally what they're showing for development is quite a bit higher than the existing Keene Creek. So they should be able to meet that last item that way. So as I mentioned, this is the first part of two other portions of this overall planned unit development before us this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions pertaining at least to this special use permit at this time.
Eric, I don't know if it'd be, I maybe kind of covered this already, but just so people that are tuning in that aren't familiar with this, we have looked at this project already and had a public hearing on it. And so we're not looking at the whole project necessarily. Is that correct? And you know, maybe
Well, the
update
item
us on where we're at with the that brings us up to the shoreline question.
Yeah, item 5D does entail the entire development that the applicant is looking for. But thank you for that. The background for this, this project has been before both Planning Commission as well as City Council early in 2019. This project is essentially the same as it had been shown at that time. Very minimal changes at best that have happened between the preliminary PUD and this graphic that's shown before you here today. When we get into that PUD section, I'll get some more into particulars pertaining to driveways, open space, et cetera, that way. But as I mentioned, this is just looking for a special use permit for the grading and filling activities associated with this development, assuming it goes forward from a final PUD standpoint.
Thanks, Eric.
Eric, how often are shorelands disturbed?
We primarily get, I want to say 3 to 4 applications a year for work within a shoreland area. To tell you the truth, a lot of the areas already within shoreland have already been disturbed. So, in the future date, assuming if and when land to the north of this is developed, there'll be shoreland applications coming forward at that point as well. But a lot of the land already within our shoreland areas, particularly as you get to the north and west portions of the city, they already have quite a bit of activity in homes within shoreland areas, to tell you the truth. It's a pretty fairly common occurrence here in the city.
Okay, so what is the stormwater runoff plan being so close to this creek?
Sure. It's the stormwater is going to be collected to the south of these units here. That water will be going by overland between swales as well as any stormwater conveyance, so that water will be directed into the stormwater pond and not into the creek. That area will still remain in an undisturbed natural area. What I'm going to do, it's tough to see at this, and obviously you can't see me pointing at it, but these 2 lines right there, that's the Hermantown, that's our Munger Trail, which is currently under construction. So everything to the east of that, between that line and the blue line, which is Keene Creek, as well as this red line, that is all undisturbed as part of this project. So stormwater will be conveyed down to the south in a newly constructed stormwater basin at that point. And they being the applicant will be required to submit engineering plans for that. So once again, that there's no runoff into the creek area.
Okay, so that trail runs right on the side of the green property we're looking at? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, yes.
Okay. And then my last question would be, how is the high water level determined? And I know you mentioned you guys are going to look into that, but if you could elaborate a little bit kind of on, what is going to be the difference in elevation from these properties to where the creek's going to be?
Sure, we work quite a bit with the DNR on these things. The DNR has done quite a bit of mapping in different areas throughout the city. Keene Creek is one of the areas, but quite a bit up to the Miller Creek area. They've done a lot of cross-sectional analysis of these watersheds, ordinary high water lines, et cetera, that way. So we will work with the DNR just to solidify what that particular number is, and then provide that to the applicant's engineer as they work on this development as well.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Hello.
Mr. Zimmerman, are we still under comments from board members at this point? Or are we open to the public yet? Mr. Greg Zimmerman?
Yes. I'm sorry, I lost connection. I got back. So Hermantown is not good quality internet. So I missed pretty much just all you said here the last 60 seconds or so.
Sure, no, Mr. Colquist had asked some questions. We did have a member of the public wanting to ask a question, but I think we're still under this section of planning and zoning members asking questions at this point before we open up the public comment.
Okay, we'll go with that. Then any other questions from commissioners?
No.
None?
And Eric, if you could unshare your screen, it might be easier for folks on the public comment side. I'd
Sure,
also
thank
ask,
you.
sorry to interrupt, I'd also ask Eric just to check the waiting room, obviously, to make sure nobody's there.
All righty. Item 5B will open up to public discussion at 7:50 p.m.
And Mr. Zimmerman, I do know that the applicant and the applicant's landscape architect are in the audience this evening as well.
Okay, good. So if you have a question, please state your name and address.
Barb Albert, 3881 Haynes Road. My question is on the picture that we were just looking at, the river or the creek was in the blue lines and then it had a dark line around it. And I was wondering what that meant. And the other question I had is how close are you going to get to the creek in changing the landscape or changing the runoff or whatnot that you're going to be doing?
Maybe not. Oh, there's two.
Well, I'm going to go back to that image and to try to answer that question here for you.
Who were you calling right
And I apologize because I have
Steve, but Larry's number.
multiple images that look the same. Okay,
Larry and Jill had two numbers.
I'm still at the wrong one.
At all.
So is Ann Peter?
It's not I have her number.
Yeah, it's on there, but
I apologize. I'm trying, there we go. There we go. Okay. My apologies. So you're asking what this black line is right there?
Correct. The one in the middle to the left of the blue line.
And honestly, I am,
That's the designated wetland.
thank you very much. I appreciate that. I was having trouble reading that graphic.
So how close to the designated wetlands are you are wanting to fill that in also? Or how close are you getting to the creek?
I'll take that from here. The applicant, this line that I'm blowing up on right now, this is the city's trail that's currently under construction.
Mhm.
This double line right there.
Right.
The applicant is not working to the east of that. So all of this land going from the east of that trail to the red line is all undisturbed.
Okay, so they won't be leveling it or doing anything with it.
No, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I got a question. Paul Johnson, 3884 Orchestra Road.
Yes, sir.
How many feet is that? You did not say how many feet from the building area to that green or wetlands.
And I may ask the landscape architect if he has a quick ability to scale that. But it's a minimum of at least 50 feet, if not more, from the nearest housing unit to the edge of that wetland.
Yeah, it does vary considerably between the trail and the existing wetland. So it's hard to put an exact dimension to it.
Okay. You are talking about the building setback, but there's also, you're gonna mess with the yard and that is east of the buildings there. So there is more footage being disturbed closer to the wetlands.
No, I'm specifically speaking, this is Luke Seidel from SAS Associates, by the way. I'm specifically speaking from the trail to the wetland. It's not really a measurable distance because it varies considerably where you measure that from. So we have used the trail as kind of a boundary for construction and development. So, and limitations for grading. Does that help you or?
For now.
And I will share with Mr. Johnson there that the Hermantown Technical Evaluation Panel, which looks at and approves wetland disturbances, has looked at this property, and any wetland disturbances any that would occur are going to be the south of this, not on the east side. Those have all been at least approved by the St. Louis County and Board of Water and Soil Resources. And this will also receive Corps of Engineering review as well. So any wetland disturbances are pretty fully vetted through different environmental agencies.
Including the national wetlands that was posted in 2016 for that property, going from east to west in that section.
I didn't catch the first part, sir.
In that property area, it's listed on your website as national wetlands, posted in 2016. So that has been permitted or approved or actually acknowledged or vetted. That is national wetlands as per your mapping.
There are, yes, the wetlands on this property have been delineated as I mentioned, everything on the eastern portion of this, as Mr. Saito had indicated, I mean, that line is generally where the wetland delineation is, that there's no impacts to the east. Any impacts there to the south have been reviewed by the TEP and have been approved by the TEP. So, but once again, this has been delineated by a state certified wetland delineator, has been reviewed by county, state, and as well as the federal level at the Corps of Engineers.
And also the west of that property, that is also wetlands? It's been posted on my property several times by the city.
I said, you know, there's no, we're just talking about shoreland right now. The wetland disturbances are to the south of these units. There's no wetland disturbances on the east side of that property. And everything to the east, everything to the west of that trail, west of that black line, is upland area that you see that is not wetland.
Okay.
Sam Clark, Planning and Zoning Commission. Just for clarification for everyone, as I know these 3 agenda items tend to they're somewhat gray area. Were there any public comments on specifically a special use permit for filling and grading within the natural environment shoreland area? So specifically for the special use permit, I understand this was an agenda item before that I was not a part of. So were there any clarifications or additions from the city, or were there any public comments on that?
Yeah, I can help you out, Mr. Clark. Thanks for the question. Back in 2019, the only thing that had been reviewed was a preliminary PUD at that point. They did not get into shoreland or variances, et cetera, at that point. All that it was the idea of a planned unit development in this area. As part of the notification process, I received 3 comments in total. 2 of those were from property owners located along Haynes, just questioning where particular lines were, where variances were being requested from. And they were comfortable with the answers. There was nothing specific to shoreland. The other question was forwarded to me by way of the DNR and responded to them as well, but it was really nothing shoreland related.
Sam Clark, Planning and Zoning. Thank you, Eric. Just one follow-up question and for myself personally. I understand that shoreland is a term to name something. Is the nature of this area a true shoreland, or is it more of just a delineation on a map, if that makes sense?
It does, and that's a very good question. Like I said, it's an area that it is a line on the map, but it has to do with a setback from some water feature. Traditionally, you hear the term shoreland, and it has to do with lakes. And the city, when we chose our ordinance, we preferred to go with that basically overarching definition. So it's a little bit different animal as opposed to Pike Lake or Lake Superior or something like that, where there's definitely shorelands associated with these. But it still has to do with some sort of a natural water body and basically states of the waters, which in this case, Keene Creek is. So yes, there is still a 300-foot line associated with it that requires that we go through this process and have higher standards when it gets into any construction within this 300-foot area.
have any more questions from the public? If so, let's, again, please state your name and address. If not, I will ask for a motion on item 5B for the special use permit for filling and grading in a shoreline overlay zone.
Commission member Zimmerman, Commission member Colquist, based on the facts that this has been vetted at the federal, state, county level, as well as the Hermantown Technical Evaluation Panel, I feel comfortable making a motion to approve agenda item 5B as stated.
Thanks, Corey. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Tracy, thank you. Motion passes. Oh, we need to take a vote. All righty. We have a motion. All in favor for item 5B to approve, say aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing in opposition, the motion, item B5, excuse me, item 5B passes. And we move on to item 5C. Still at 4747 Hermantown Road, variance from building setbacks in a shoreline overlay zone.
Great, thanks again, Mr. Zimmerman. I'm going to share another graphic with us. As I mentioned, this is still on that same subject property, that 8.7 acres. The graphic that I'm showing, what the applicant is associated with our shoreland areas, there's a 150-foot structure setback, once again, from the ordinary high water level associated with Keene Creek. The city has in the past granted variances from these different these setbacks in the past. What the applicant is proposing this evening is a 50-foot setback associated with this. What I'm doing is the lighter blue line on the right-hand side of your screen is Keene Creek. The dark blue line that goes in a bit, that is the 150-foot building setback line. What the applicant is proposing is the pink line, which is a 100-foot proposed building setback this evening. What this area encompasses is essentially 3 primary residences, potentially 4 garage structures that would be closer than that 150 feet, that they would be a minimum of 100 feet away from that. As you can see at this graphic, that area between the dark blue and the pink line is a subject area that we're looking at this evening. As I mentioned before, the city has granted variance requests in the past. We would still require that nothing would be, no structures could be located closer than that 100-foot line, a sort of future date that way.
Do you have any questions from commissioners?
Sam Clark, Planning and Zoning. Eric, just one quick clarification, similar to my last question. As I actually do live on an unnamed stream, so I have 300 feet of shoreland. But in the city's perspective, is the building setback variance meet the intent of protecting the surrounding area? Again, that it's not a robust shoreline as you would naturally think of one.
Yes, thank you, Sam. Yes, we do. Like I said, we've gone down as far as a 78-foot setback. Like I said, we do have some unnamed tributaries within the city here as well. And the fact that everything on that east side of the trail is being protected, as well as all that wetland that generally abuts Keene Creek there running north-south, are still protected, that there's a comfort level from staff that this meets the requirements that way. There's still a green filter strip that is located, you can see just underneath that pink line as well, that just helps out additionally with any sort of potentially runoff from yards, et cetera, that way, that it still can act as a filter strip also.
Thank you, Eric. And then when the public discussion opens, I would be interested if anyone had any issues with the 50-foot variance that's being requested. Thank you very much.
Eric, piggybacking off Sam's question there, what is a rough elevation change from kind of where that, I mean, even I guess the trail down to that creek? Do you know that? Really quizzing you.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm looking at plans in front of me, and I'm going to put Mr. Saito on the spot, the applicant's landscape architect, if he has a better answer to that than I do at this point. I do not have the grading plan fully in front of me at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. As you go from north to south, we're looking at a greater elevation change from probably 14 feet. And as you get further south, it's at least 8 or 10 feet above Keene Creek. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, and kind of getting back to Sam's question of, although it is a shoreline, is it, a true shoreline, and how much, distance do we have in between, just to make sure there's a certain comfort level. So yes, thank you.
Yeah, and all the construction will be still on the westerly side of the trail, which is in place right now. So, we use that trail as a kind of as a setback and a buffer.
Right. No, and I think that's a great thing. So thank you.
Thanks.
I have a question, not so much a question, but simply, I was born in Barbalberg on Haynes Road again. Born and raised in Hermantown, and it's as much as I know that it's important to have development and whatever to keep our city strong, it saddens me that we're losing so much of our green space, as it were, and to think of losing 50 feet more of what would be just simply wild and green. And I just don't know why you would have to do the 50-foot. Why couldn't you keep it where it should be? And then there's not a question about whether the creek is at its having any danger. You have all the things that say that people have said that it's no danger, but I had a friend years ago, Debbie Ortman, who worked really, really hard for Kings Creek to protect that, up and planted trees and just really worked hard at that. And I just find that we can just say, yeah, we can move it 50 feet closer, but is that really the right thing to do? That is my thought.
We have any more questions or comments from the public?
Yes, this is Paul Johnson again. I do have a problem with the setback, decreasing it down to 50 feet, especially by Kings Creek. That's taken such abuse from so many different conditions. There used to be trout in that stream. This project, why are we changing our city ordinances that were there to protect our streams and wetlands and our residents to help it develop? And as far as the trail is concerned, it's a paved trail. With a paved trail and watershed, there's less filtration of the ground because the water is going over the trail into the creek. Is that not correct?
Yes, it is a paved trail, and there's, they said it varies in the distance from the creek, but I know it is always greater than 50 feet, which is part of the ordinance that no structures, paving, etc. disturbance is allowed closer than 50 feet. So not only does the proposed development meet that, but also the city's work with the trail system here as well.
Well, if you're gonna change that ordinance to make it closer to the creek, then there's less distance. And you have more of the, you have salt from the driveways and roads, you have fertilizer from the houses, and it's closer to the creek by 100 feet. Or close to. So that could contaminate Kings Creek a lot easier than having the ordinance that we already have.
I agree.
Maybe I can help you out on that a little, Eric, is that a lot of the area that we're talking about is already being farmed for cornfields and other activities on site as well. We're not expanding much from what existing happening on today's activities. So that with the corn maze and the road infrastructure, the trunk sewer line, and the requirements to expand from that, it makes it sound like it's a bad thing, but we're really not proposing much different than what's happening in today's activities.
Well, this is Paul again. I'd have to disagree with that because you are increasing motor traffic and other chemicals that are not currently there with the corn meats. You got a lot more vehicles, a lot more people. You've got fertilizer. You've got animals. You got all kinds of stuff that are being introduced to that area. So that was not there in the corn meats. Corn meats are more natural. Housing developments are not.
Eric, Commission Member Colquist, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the stormwater catches put in place to prevent any of these chemicals from entering the streams? And can you elaborate on that?
Sure. The city has a very, very stringent stormwater requirements for any new developments that we have. It's looked quite a bit with the applicant's engineer as well as the city's engineer to meet the requirements. That's basically a state statute as far as water quality, water runoff, etc. So as part of the development, all the impervious areas, water coming off those will be caught. I mean, that's the whole purpose of it, is that they are meant to be caught, channeled into some sort of stormwater system associated with the development. So any potential runoff from new paved surfaces, once again, will be caught either through storm sewer systems, grassy swales, etc., and then brought into what we call a best management practice, i.e. a pond or some sort of a drainage structure. With that point, that if there are any contaminants, it has the ability to filter out before that water is discharged at a rate that's equal to the existing conditions that exist on the site today.
Thank you. And then just to clarify, the trail that's being put in place or is in place has nothing to do with this project, correct? That is already going in or is there?
That is correct. That is a city project that is not any part of the development this evening.
And so the applicant is building on the opposite side of that existing trail from the waterway, correct?
Yes, that's correct. They're building to the west of that trail.
Okay, thank you.
So you're going to tell me that the developers can put all the curbs and storm sewer grates and everything on all their alleys and parking lots so it goes into the proper drainage?
Yes, that is a requirement. I'm assuming this is Mr. Johnson again?
Yes, it is.
Okay, like I said, this is all visual and just trying to keep our record straight. So we ask if anybody makes comments that once again, you can provide your name and information. We're just trying to help out our people as best we can at this end. But yes, that is correct. For our stormwater ordinance, we do capture and treat stormwater. It is a requirement. And the water needs to be captured at the rate that exists under existing conditions today. So, with the undeveloped nature of this, and there will be quite stringent stormwater requirements for the site.
Is it possible that any of these design, I'm sorry, this is Greg Zimmerman. But that, would any of these designs actually improve the health of that creek? Because when I drive by that Ingwell's Pond and it's all choked with weeds, and that's just kind of disappointing after knowing what it looked like years ago. But is it possible that some of these designs will actually improve the quality of that?
I mean, there's always a possibility that once again, by capturing runoff, et cetera, that way, the city, I mean, people look out after us as well. The Minnesota DNR looks after the health of the creek as well. I am working with members of Minnesota Trout Unlimited to do some work further down south on Keene Creek, within Keene Creek Park, on basically eliminating erosion and helping out the stream banks associated with that. So not only projects like this, but other projects through other environmental groups always have the ability to hopefully not only protect what we have, but also trying to keep them functioning and improving them in the process.
Any other comments from the public? If so, again, please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Tammy Johnson. I'm at 3884 Oakerston Road. Just wondering if the storm sewer or your watershed fails or containments fail, who is responsible for the cleanup? Is it the city of Hermantown, the developer, or?
At this point, the developer would be owning the ponds associated with it. If there's any catastrophic events, and I hate to say it, what we designed for is called 1, 5, 10, and 100-year events. When you get into events like 2012, where you have 500-year events, I mean, you cannot engineer for those. It's just the nature of it. So, you know, if there is some sort of catastrophic event and there's failures, the city would be looking at the developer and looking at potential cleanup and working with our environmental partners here as well on what we could do for this. But like I said, all the engineering for this is required to go up to the 100-year event, which is that is the requirements of our stormwater ordinance.
Good evening. My name is Don Kalos, 4775 Anderson Road. I live across the Anderson from this development. I have a couple of comments. My first one is, you're touting this trail that they're only developing to the east of the trail, to the east of the trail. They're not going to develop to the west of the trail. Let's remember that the trail was paid for by taxpayer money. It is a City of Hermantown project, and it was actually moved to allow this development. It's not that the development pushed up against the trail actually pushed out around the development. And to keep touting it as they're not going to develop on the west or the east side of the trail is just kind of false advertising. We've done some talk about impervious surfaces. We have roads, houses, roofs, driveways. I think a lot of these structures are going to be so close to each other that they're not going to support grass between them. I would love to hear about, on this development as a whole, what percentage of the lot is actually going to be impervious as compared to a pervious surface. And I think Mr. Johnson's comments was that Keene's Creek is under stress, that putting so much impervious surfaces right next to the creek, regardless of what kind of engineering you have to it, you can't improve upon what nature does for a stream. That's arrogance on human nature's part, that we can put in a storm sewer system and it's going to improve upon what nature does. That's absolutely foolishness. And my last comment on here was, this is phase one of this development, this 25, 26 home development. Next is going to be the phase two of it. More impervious surfaces, more roads, more setbacks. And the only reason why we're doing setbacks on this is for profits. That's it. No other reason are we going to destroy the stream more than we have to, other than so the owner of that property can put in 3 more houses and 4 more garages for profits? Thank you.
That doesn't look like that road. One meter at all, you don't think?
I guess when we get into the PUD, which is the next item, we can get into more impervious and pervious surfaces with that.
What is it? I'm just throwing it out there.
Some of the questions that Mr. Kalos asked will be addressed in the next portion here.
Sam Clark, Planning and Zoning. Eric, as you just mentioned, if there are any more public comments on the 50-foot variance being requested from the 150-foot setback, maybe we could address those. Otherwise, we are starting to run into the next agenda item, so maybe that would be a more appropriate place for comments too.
Sure, I would just, Don Kalos here again. I'd just like to re-ask the last question I asked here. Are we doing this for any other reason other than profits? So that this property owner can put in 3 more houses and 4 more garages? I don't see where this development's going to fail if he doesn't have his 3 more houses or 4 more garages. We are doing it simply for profits. Is there any other reason?
I do think that is Sam Clark, Planning and Zoning. I do think that's a fair question. Maybe we could address that, and then if there's any other specific questions to the 50-foot variance. I do understand there's a few challenges in complying with the Hermantown zoning code that were addressed.
With that, I don't know if Mr. Hoff, the applicant, or Mr. Saito as the landscape architect wanted to further clarify on that question or comment, or have the ability to.
I can answer some of the questions on the trail alignment. I know Don had just mentioned that the development was, the trail was pushed back for the development of the trail was pushed back for the benefit of the
Planning and Zoning. I think we were talking about just specifically if the 50-foot variance being requested has anything to do with the building project itself.
Yeah, but there was 2 questions there, and I'd like to answer the first one. And realistically, we pushed the trail back for the benefit of the people, so they could get, the adjacent neighbors could access trail along Keene Creek. We didn't, for us, it would have been beneficial to have the trail along the road and have our residents along Keene Creek. But we did it for the benefit of the Hermantown residents to the north and to the south to have more access along the trail. In terms of the economics of the 3 additional lots, I guess if Sandy's available, I'd like to have him answer that. But the cost of construction are pretty big, and I'll let Sandy go into that in detail if he's still on.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Saito. Sandy Hoff, for the record, 800B West Railroad Street is my address. What we have found is that the cost of construction is extremely high these days. And we have modeled many different development configurations. And what we found is that without the 26 lots that are proposed for this development, it is not financially feasible. It's not about making more money. It's about actually being able to construct a development at all. When we reached out to the city of Hermantown and the community to find out what sort of development they would like to see, the response was that they wanted affordable lots and they wanted an ultimate home price in that $350,000 range or less. And so that's what we've modeled this after. And so that's why we need the 26 lots. I want to remind everybody that all of us live in homes and live in developments because people took the risk and they made a profit. And profit is a wonderful thing. It is not a negative thing. And so, yes, we need 26 lots in this development to make the economics work so people are willing to build developments like this. We've worked very hard with Mr. Johnson and his team and the other government agencies to create a wonderful development that we're proud of, and I know the community is going to be proud of it. So we appreciate the commissioner's support.
And I'll just touch a little bit further. This is Eric Johnson again on Mr. Saido's comment regarding that trail location. That is correct. That trail location has been shown as part of the 2014 master plan for the Munger Trail, that was always the envisioned alignment that was paralleling Keene Creek. That's something that these different groups have looked at. Once again, has been seen by state agencies, et cetera, that way. When the city was developing or planning for this trail, there was quite a bit of conversations with the existing property owner, Mr. Rod Saline. This property has been on the market for a number of years now, and by locating the trail where it does, it allows this the trail to not only be an amenity for this potential development, but also for the citizens of the city as well. I just sat in a park board meeting earlier today where we're contemplating an extension of this trail. And the trail, two scenarios were, one was running it along the roadway, the other one was running it along Keene Creek to the south through the woods. And that was by far and away the preferred alignment for it. The whole purpose of this Munger Trail is once again, is try to keep it in the natural areas and not put it as part of a right-of-way in a roadway. So just to help give some background on this trail location as well.
This is Paul Johnson on 3884 Oakestrom Road again. Yeah, I understand development and need to make profit and be successful. But wetlands and streams are very important to this community. I've been in this, my family's been on this property for over 100 years. We built our house in a way to preserve the wetlands. All I'm asking is for you to preserve the wetlands we have and the ordinances that we already have and exist, not to change them for developers.
Hello again.
Okay,
Don.
I think we're just kind of starting to rehash some of the same stuff back and forth, and we could do that all night long probably, but I'm gonna throw this out there. I think everybody's had a chance to speak now, so can I get a motion on item 5C?
I'll make a motion on 5C to approve.
Do I have a second on that?
Commission Member Colquist will have a second.
A second, so all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. We'll move on to item 5D.
50 feet closer.
The same address, a final planned unit development. We're looking for, well, let's have Eric give us some background on this.
Great, thanks again, Mr. Zimmerman. So as I mentioned previously, this is a final planned unit development application to construct 26 single-family lots on 8.7 acres of land. The property is located in an R3 zoning district. As I mentioned previously, wetlands have been delineated on this site. They have been approved by the technical evaluation panel.
Yep.
Sorry, I was trying to mute some mics there. So this property has been actively being marketed since 2015. Back in 2019, there was public hearings held both on April and May of 2019. At that time, there were approximately 50 residents who lived in the vicinity who spoke about the project. Some comments that have been perceived or received at that time was the size of the project, its location to other single-family housing, and then how traffic may be affected in this area by this development. At that time, the preliminary
How does
PUD.
it exist now? Like here would be the garden center.
Ma'am, who's talking? Maybe if everyone could mute their mics, please, because I'm catching a lot of crosstalk from people. The preliminary PUD. Maybe I can do that. Thank you. The preliminary PUD was approved at that time unanimously by the City Council back in 2019. The proposed application is for a planned unit development, which would be consisting of a series of 1.5 to 2-story home structures with either detached or potentially attached garages. The envisioned style represented in the attachments of the units would be a minimum of 1,500 square feet of living space. The homes will front onto common green areas that vary in width at least a minimum of 50 feet, and as well as a length of anywhere from 170 to 220 feet. As we talked about previously, the Munger Trail is located on the east side of this property, and these units, there's an interior sidewalk system within these common green areas that provide accesses to each one of these lots that as well would bring people to be able to access that recreational trail. What is proposed this evening is this road that I'm zooming in on. It's a north-south road that would be a public roadway and built to city standards. It would be a 28-foot wide roadway with curb and gutter and sidewalk on at least one side of the roadway. The right-of-way would mirror the existing easement that's in place for the property that contains the city sanitary sewer, which is currently under construction. Each one of these homes would then get access by way of private alleyways that head off in an east-west direction. There's 2 located on both sides of this main roadway system. That proposed north-south city roadway would eventually be envisioned to connect down to Hermantown Road, which would provide 2 access points to this property. One from Anderson Road to the north and eventually Hermantown Road to the south. The applicant is providing for internal parking areas for guest visitors. These are some of these areas right here on the site and located at the end of these cul-de-sacs as well. The applicant is also provided for fire access turnaround. That's what's located in this area right here. This is a different style housing that obviously the city of Hermantown has. This type of housing development is generally known as new urbanism type of design, where you have smaller lot sizes, larger common open green space for people to utilize. Access to either trail systems by way of the city's Munger Trail on the east, or internal sidewalk systems that connect not only to a sidewalk system throughout the development, but also to that trail. Minimum lot size is approximately 3,825 square feet. There's various setbacks that are would be established as part of this planned unit development. Those are all are addressed in this staff report. We have setbacks anywhere from a minimum of 5 feet in front yards, which is this area right here, and then minimum of 30 feet in the rear yards, which is this portion for the main structure. What you're seeing, these other boxes right here, those are envisioned as potential detached garages. What I'm going to share right now is some different housing types that the applicant has been looking at and ideas associated with this development. As you can see here in this upper left-hand corner, this is the idea of having the common green space, the sidewalk system, homes fronting onto this common green, the ability to have porches, basically an inward-facing type of community that way. This is a common theme throughout all these different designs, elements and styles here. The developer and applicant has indicated that there would be housing covenants associated with this development. So they would be able to try to create a common theme throughout this development. As I had mentioned previously, this is a planned unit development before us. A planned unit development, or PUD, is allowed in a R3 zoning district. And the city zoning regulations allow for the city to set different setbacks associated with that PUD. And that is what is being proposed before us this evening. As part of this, there will continue to be work by the applicant and the applicant's engineer and landscape architect on the further refinement of these plans. Stormwater will be a big portion of this. It is from preliminary engineering plans, the stormwater will be handled on the southern part of these proposed units that you're seeing here. That's where the stormwater basin will be for this development. All that water from that system will flow to that by way of either storm sewer or overland swales. The applicant would work with the city to tie in their private systems for utility standpoints, both from a city sewer and city water standpoint. These private utilities would run down the city's, or the proposed alleyways. And I want to strike that last statement. These will actually be public lines associated with that. There will be an easement over these alleyways, so the city has the ability to ever perform work on those utilities if it needs be in the future. But the alleyways will be private and will be maintained by the applicant or an HOA associated with it. The city would not snowplow those alleyways, only the main north-south road. This project, as I'd mentioned, had received preliminary planned unit development in 2019. This is essentially the same development that was seen back in 2019 that we're seeing here today. There's still the same number of lots, the same setbacks associated with it, the concept of the central greens with inward-facing homes, and that new urbanism type of style should create a planned unit development for this 8.7 acre lot. At that point, be happy to answer any questions from the planning and zoning members.
And Eric, before they jump in, just your regular reminder to check the waiting room. Appreciate it.
Sure. Joe, I'm trying to unmute everybody. Okay, I think we're live that way. All right, Mr. Zimmerman, that concludes my report at this time.
Eric, Commission Member Colquist here. How many parking spots are they going to have in this development?
There appears to be 12 what we call off-street parking spaces. And then each home will have the ability to have anywhere from 1 to 2 cars associated with that as well. I may turn that over to the applicant's landscape architect in a few minutes to maybe provide any additional clarification on that.
And then just to clarify, snow removal on that main pass will be done by Hermantown, and then on each of the little legs off that will be by an association or somehow taken care of by the developer?
Yes, that is correct. The city will only maintain the north-south roadway as that meets our standards for the paved surfaces, not the alleyways.
Okay, in those alleyways, for those garages, what is the setback? And if I'm reading it correct, it looked to be 2 feet. And is that enough for snow removal? I get it's their problem to figure out, but has that been something you guys have looked at?
Yes, we have discussed that quite a bit from a public works standpoint. One of our major concerns is more or less with the maintaining of the utilities underneath that. That's where we're requiring that we have the easements on top of that, and that the garages are set back a couple feet, that we would not undermine any sort of foundations associated with those garages.
Okay.
But the snow removal, like you said, that there won't be a lot of opportunity. There will be some opportunity to store snow on the site, but that's something that the HOA is going to have to work with a bit on their snow storage plan and removal for this property.
Okay. And you may not be able to answer this, it may have to be the developer, but if they do not build a garage, can that be a part, like a driveway for that resident?
I'll start that initially and welcome any clarifications. I believe that is an option, that if a homeowner chooses not to put in the garage, that could be a parking pad per se. That gets back into Mr. Hoff's comments of trying to maintain a price range for all people within our city here.
Mr. Johnson, Sandy Hoff, yes, that is correct. That would be available for parking. We suspect that we'll have some restrictive covenants as to what could be parked there long-term, so people can't put their large boats and cover it with the blue tarp and have it out there year-round, that sort of thing. So we want to maintain a quality development.
Perfect, thank you.
Do you have any other questions from commissioners? I think maybe I missed the boat here, but did I miss opening this up for public comment officially, Eric, or not?
I guess if there are no further comments from commission members, then we could go to the public at that stage.
All righty. Yeah, first of all, I'll ask again, any commissioners have any further questions? Okay, if not, then we will open this up, item 5D, to public discussion at 8:45 p.m. Again, if you have a question, include your name and address.
This is Paul Johnson again at 3884 Oakerson Road. I have a few questions. First of all, what is the wetlands runoff protection on the west side of the project? Also, are we changing another ordinance in this development to allow them going from a half-acre lot to less than a half-acre, which is basically a third, I think this project is, per lot? And then my last question for now is, with the households typically have 2-car minimums per household on average, and with the lack of parking and the lack of 2-car garages and stuff like that, people are going to start parking in the alleys, and this to me looks like a West Duluth project in Hermantown.
Well, I will start with that, and I will address the wetlands as well as the PUD process. As I mentioned, all the wetlands in the western part of the property have been delineated. Everything that the applicant is showing is been either approved from a wetland standpoint or that is in an upland area. So as far as when you talk about wetlands to the west, those have already either been addressed as part of the city's sanitary trunk line sanitary sewer with this project, or once again, our upland areas. It's the same thing. There's what we've typically done in other projects is, and it more has to do with single family residential that encroach into wetlands and cause impacts to wetlands, because people start putting their garages and sheds and play structures in wetlands. And when you get a development of this nature, that's not how it's envisioned, nor would the covenants, my understanding, allow such a thing. The city, this is a planned unit development. The city has the ability, per the PUD, to set different lot sizes, different lot densities, different lot setbacks associated with it. It's an all-encompassing project. The underlying zoning is R3, but a planned unit development is allowed within an R3 zoning district. And once again, that the city has the ability to look at different setbacks, lot densities, et cetera, under a planned unit development. I guess getting into that last part of your question, maybe if either the applicant or the landscape architect maybe want to address that a little bit. I guess to get in with the parking requirements, and maybe once again talk about your vision for this property.
Mr. Saito, perhaps you could share, this is Sandy Hoff, for your experience with a similar development in Colorado.
Yes, thanks, Sandy. We've done not a lot of these developments, but this development's been done all over the country. And we are providing enough spaces to do two parking spaces on their property, if not more, based on the lot width. And then we're providing 12 additional spaces for guests and such. So we don't feel that this is a big concern in terms of parking. I'll leave it at that.
We have another question? Anybody else?
Good afternoon or evening now. Don Kalos, 4775 Anderson Road. We've heard that this development is going to be affordably priced, but at 1,500 square feet per unit at a $350 or $350,000 price tag per unit is what I heard thrown out. That pushes it above the median price range by, I had my number here and I seem to have lost it in my chicken scratch, but it's above the median price range, I want to say by 20%. This is not really affordable housing in Hermantown. And I understand the need for affordable housing, but this isn't what we really want. To go off the parking issue, 12 additional parking spaces is less than 1 per unit. So I understand that maybe this isn't going to be the place where family gatherings are going to happen during the holidays, but at less than 1 per unit, you're going to blow through your parking pretty quickly. Is there a plan for additional parking, especially in the winter? When those parking spaces at the end of the rows get filled up, are you just going to push snow onto other people's lot, or are you going to push it down onto the Munger Trail and off your engineered stormwater runoff, or is this snow going to be trucked out? Also, there's not a lot of room in there for snow removal, but we get emergency equipment in there, and it's going to become a real nightmare with people parking on the road. Is there going to be anything for special enforcement on this? Or is it just going to become a nightmare that Hermantown's going to turn their head at? And when I went to the eminent domain hearing for my property on the trail, I was told that the city of Hermantown worked extensively with the Ingwalls property owners to route the sewer system through their property and route the trail around the property. My last question is, how much extra money did the city of Hermantown already spend on this project? And is the city of Hermantown willing to walk away from it if it's not the right project for Hermantown? I got a feeling you already got too much skin in the game to say no to any of this. Thank you.
Let me answer the question about the parking a little bit. Sorry, Luke from SAS again. We did this particular project in very similar project in Breckenridge, Colorado. And that's where we based the number of parking spaces on, and the number of additional parking spaces are based on that as well. But in Breckenridge, Colorado, the sidewalk or the alley was 18 feet, if I recall, and we're currently proposing a 28-foot wide alley. So in terms of life safety, I think we have plenty of room for life safety through that width in the alley. And Breckenridge, Colorado gets considerable amount more snow than we get. And yes, we will have to haul some snow off. That's not, we're fully aware of that in order to accommodate snow on heavy snow years. And I think we're very comfortable with the number of parking spaces based on the type of living and the people who want to live in those spaces in that type of home. So I think we're pretty comfortable with that. But in terms of the rest of the questions, I'll leave that up to Eric and Sandy.
Well, I think I'll jump in a little bit to help out on some housing costs, and Mr. Hoff can interject where he needs to as well. Right now, under our standard R3 zoning, they're half-acre lots, minimum 100 feet of lot frontage. Development costs are coming in almost $1,000 a lineal foot for roads, sidewalks, utilities, just to create lots. Homes such as Jackson Estates, which is currently under development, Filkey Circle, Timber Trails, all these homes, new construction is eclipsing $500,000 for a single family home. It's almost approaching $600,000 at this stage. I've been speaking to the developer for Peyton Acres. Initially, he's building 6 lots right now. Initially, he was envisioning lots anywhere from 80 to 120,000. I asked him a couple weeks ago if he's still on par for that. And he said, no, it's gonna be closer to at least 100,000. So when you start translating that, $100,000 lot, your lot with a home housing unit on it is at least a minimum of $500,000. And this is an opportunity to create a development for a type of housing product that the city doesn't currently have. The closest thing we have is maybe at Heartwoods, which is a smaller lot, combination of single family homes and some twin homes. And it's been very successful. It's been quite a bit of people living there are retirees or empty nesters that way. They like that ability. They don't have to a large yard to maintain. They have neighbors right next door. They like that. I mean, this is a development that's not for everybody. I mean, the city understands that. They realize that. But we want to have the ability to maybe have a different product that other people might be interested in. Because right now, like I said, this does not exist in the city of Hermantown. And by creating smaller lots, you can start getting a little bit better handle on your development costs and utilizing land a little bit better and try to bring these lot costs down and potentially the home cost value as well. I talked to developers that and the other people said, if you can deliver a product to market, $3.25 to $3.75, they sell like hotcakes. And right now, under the current R3 zoning standards, that's unfeasible, just given the high cost of construction that way and land utilization. So yes, the city did have quite a bit of conversations with Mr. Saline. As I mentioned, this property has been on the market for at least 5 years. And when the city was planning the sanitary sewer for this, we knew that this was an actively marketed site. We engaged Mr. Saline and how the sanitary sewer could lay in there and still make the most sense for any development plans that he had. Obviously, this is the sanitary sewer is a lot of work going through properties that way, as Mr. Kalos knows that. And so when we knew that this was a potential property that could be developed, could be marketed, tried to place the sanitary sewer in a logical location that would still allow for development and not only meet the city's needs, but also maybe the thoughts associated with the developer and the property owner that way as well.
Eric, Sam Clark. First of all, thank you very much. That was, I thought that was very informative for myself personally. Quick clarification on the PUD overlay, which we're specifically talking about for this 8.75 or 8.7 acres. Is this specifically for, if this is not for the entire property, correct? The PUD overlay, we're just talking about the 8.75 acres, the rest would still be zoned R3 currently?
Yes, that is correct. It is only this northern 8.7 acres that's under discussion or would receive approval for a PUD. This is not the land further to the south. That's still an active operation that exists.
So any future changes to the rest of the property would be, again, another agenda item in a planning and zoning meeting?
That is correct. It would go through the same process of a preliminary and a final PUD. They would go through the same notification and public input process as we're doing this tonight, as we did back in 2019.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, please state your name and address.
Myrna Johnson, 4774 Anderson Road. My comment with a question is that according to the land use management regulations, 51510 R3 regulations, that this is really important to our neighborhood. And this is actually for Mr. Hoff to answer. The regulations state that a new development must be situated on property so siting doesn't impact, impose, or interfere with backyard privacy of neighboring properties. Will that regulation be followed?
This is Sandy Hoff. I'm not sure I entirely understand the question. This neighborhood is specifically designed so that we create that sense of community, and the front porches of the homes face each other in the common green space. So the intent is for the neighbors to actually be more interactive and a greater sense of community. So perhaps you could re-ask the question for me.
Yes,
Well, actually,
I think it is not clear to you.
What I'm showing up right now, actually, Miss Johnson, if I could just talk real quick, I think this might help you out.
Sure.
What I just placed up here as well, this is an aerial of the surrounding properties. And once again, we're talking everything north. You see that 4747 Hermantown Road, everything north of that, you know, essentially it's kind of the boundary for this 8.7 acres. So you talked about backyards. I'm assuming you're talking about the adjoining properties and not necessarily the properties within that.
That's correct.
So, yep. So as you can see, at least up here in Anderson Road, 4760, 4768, generally 50, 70 feet off of Anderson Road, extremely deep backyards. Likewise, 4747 or 4774. 3884 is probably the closest. That
is that on Okerstrom?
That's on Okerstrom, but they're still keeping that existing pine trees all along that area. So there's a buffer, and that the rear yard of Okerstrom is still rather deep that way. When you get over to the other side of Anderson Road, 4730, 24, etc., those are all properties that are located on the east side of Keene Creek. So really no backyard type of visibility, for lack of better words, of this development.
Okay, to reemphasize, then it will not expose, impose, impact, interfere with the privacy of neighboring products on Anderson and Okerstrom Roads.
Because just given the setbacks and the depths of those lots, it appears that the spirit of the plan of this is in keeping with that.
Okay, and again, no pine trees will be cut?
We have to finish the grading plan, but the work over in this area of the property, let me see, I'm gonna try to get another one up, how that relates.
Okay. I was not able to get in on, so I'm not able to see your maps. It wouldn't come in
Oh,
on
I
my
see.
device.
I'm sorry, gotcha. What I'm just putting up right now is this 8.7 acres that we talk about. That does not reach that area of those existing pine trees as part of this proposed development. Those are the trees that are directly behind that home on Åkerström
Okay,
at 3884 Åkerström.
okay, that eases some of my concerns. I do have other concerns with this project, and it saddens me also that we would put such a dense project in such a small space in Hermantown. I guess I would like to have some citizen input on these developments to see what Hermantown wants. But thank you for answering my question and my concern.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Kevin Shea, 4777 Anderson Road. My concern would be living where I do at the very top of the hill there. I can't even see where the access comes out currently. So with, I'm assuming 50 plus cars a day going to be coming in and out of there, is that going to be a controlled intersection on Anderson? Is there any thoughts to that?
There will be a stop situation coming out of this development, but Anderson will continue to be a throughway as it is today. The city has been discussing, not only because of this development, but also with our trail crossing, the addition of additional signage along Anderson Road on both the eastern and western portions, not only alerting people to a potential trail crossing, but a potential driveway should this project go forward. And then if and when the southerly part of this property is ever developed, that could provide another out onto Hermantown Road, provide access both from the north and the south.
So currently the plan is only going to have access to Anderson Road then?
That is correct, yes.
Just, this is Olivia Kalos on 4075 Anderson Road. Just to ask a question, since it's directly related to this, when this was talked about previously, I brought up to the engineers and at the planning meeting when it was in person, about the fact that the top of this road gets very slick in the winter because of all said pine trees. We've had many accidents here, and you were just bringing up about this. I'm curious if anything was done on that by the city to address the fact that the output will be down the hill and you have a very slippery road through there. And was anything talked about or addressed from that concern from the previous meeting?
I do recall your comments from last year. Obviously, as part of with the development, and I'm going to open up again this map. Potentially some of those evergreen trees, at least on the south side of Anderson, may be removed. Obviously, it depends on these four homes right here, how the grading plan works out. This lot right here, there's probably an opportunity to
just to pause you because you're not listening to actually, I'm talking about current homes on 4774, actually just right below it. I don't know the address right across from us, but that's on the top of the hill. This is going down the hill. This is, if you pull up that previous property or previous picture that shows addresses on Anderson, would be more helpful. The 4768, you can see all of that. That is the top of the hill, and that is all full of evergreens there. Yes, the ones that are down the hill will be removed, but on 4768 and 4774, there's a lot of pines right in there, and those all leave the top of that hill extremely slippery. I brought that up at the previous meeting. I would really like to have that addressed so we don't have more accidents than we do. My kids, I brought it up to the last time. As they've grown, they sit in our big picture window and unfortunately watch the wreckers that come in every winter because there are accidents on the top of this hill when people come over the hill right at the property line of 4774 and 4768. That road is extremely slippery, and you're going to have people coming out right at the bottom of that hill or dirt in that hill. I don't know quite where, but as they come over that hill, they're going to have to stop when people are coming out. What is going to be done to address that for the neighbors? And a lot of people do drive this road for all the developments on Stebner and etc.
Well, it appears, and this map is tough to tell, but the 4774 and 4768, I'd have to see if those trees are within city right of way or if they're in private property. If they're on private property, the city does not have a lot of recourse to, they'd have to be taken down with permission of those property owners. The city does not have the right to go into private property and remove trees. So that's a little
You're
bit hard.
not listening to what I asked. I
Ma'am,
brought
no,
it up
I am,
last time.
I am. I'm
And
trying to
this,
address
of course, I do not want my neighbors to have to lose their trees. What I'm talking about is what are you going to do for that public road that you're bringing out? It's going to be a City of Hermantown road that is coming directly out. I brought this up at the last meeting. I realized my husband and you blow us off because we were eminent domain. I don't care about that. I'm talking about the fact that I have children in my yard. Other people do too. And people are going to be coming out of that public road at the bottom of a hill that is slippery. Obviously, you cannot take people's, well, actually, never mind. But I do not want you to have to take people's pine trees. What I'm talking about is what are you going to do for the entryway of that? Has that even been looked at when it was brought up by the public the last meeting? Was it even addressed of where that road comes out? Or was it more important for the development?
This road is tied to the underlying sewer for that. I see Mr. David Bolf, the city engineer, is online. Mr. Bolf, I don't know if you have an opportunity to maybe weigh in on this a little bit.
Yeah. So thank you, Eric. This is David Bolf, the Hermantown city engineer. Olivia, we do have a unique situation here and definitely a safety concern. We are actively looking at not only this roadway, but there is a trail, pedestrian multi-use trail that's going to cross there as well. So Eric and I have been tasked by the administration to come up with a safety plan for the crossing of this trail at this location and up at Stebner Park and down at Hermantown Road. So this intersection that you're concerned about, we will be looking at that as well. And one of the considerations could be similar to what St. Louis County has done on some of their rural intersections, and that's putting some advance warning. An example would be on Midway Road in Adolph, where they have the advanced warning on top of the hill. So when a train comes, that would be a lot more elaborate system that we would need here. But that's the type of traffic control that might be effective in this scenario. So we have heard your concern, and we are addressing it. We are not blowing it off. We definitely do not want any accident or any residents or children's lives in jeopardy because of a new roadway connection.
This is again Olivia Kalos at 4775 Anderson Road. I was just wanted to thank you that I feel like you maybe heard us today, but I'm also curious about when this might actually be addressed. You're moving forward with the project, but I don't see the city necessarily maybe moving forward with the project as much as needed for this road. That is obviously something. You have a trail that's already, right now, I drove this road and there is nothing marked right now with all the snow that was there. There's nothing on the road where Munger Trail goes across for people to know that there is blacktop gone. So you can understand my frustrations with the city of Hermantown when I've watched this trail go in, when I'm worried about now an actual road coming in and you're not marking it right now. So when exactly could we as citizens have the city actually do it?
So that's this is David, the city engineer again. So to answer that question, I heard two questions in that your last statement. One is we have an active construction project with our trunk sewer line and the construction of the trail, and there are no signs on it yet because it's not open to the public. We plan to put a patch back in Anderson Road, and I was expecting that to be done last week, but they got behind. The second piece to that is, when are these improvements going to be made? And that will be the time at which the developer brings forth a set of construction plans that goes across Eric's desk, my desk, and the Public Works Director's desk to make sure that the wetlands are in compliance, the stormwater is in compliance, the utilities are in compliance, and the traffic and erosion control are all in compliance. So those are all things that come across my desk for review and approval to make sure that they meet the standards and specifications that the city has in place. So.
I have a comment. Myrna Johnson, 4774 again. Is there something temporary that you could do right now, because it is bad? And maybe we'll have to wait for your elaborate plan. But I asked about that about a year ago and got a very patronizing answer saying that, well, we have speed signs. Something is needed before the development goes in. Can you come up with something, maybe not as elaborate, but something that will help?
Sam Clark, Planning and Zoning Commission. I apologize. I'm getting kind of confused. Are we still talking about the agenda item 5D to put a planned unit development? Or are we talking about something else?
Sam, Eric Johnson, no, we are on item 5D. These were comments that when this came as a preliminary PUD, there's concerns about how this proposed roadway would intersect Anderson. So this is, in a way, it's a continuation of conversations from a year ago.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Sure.
Paul Johnson from 3884 Oakstrom Road again. Part of my neighboring complaint is the large bump. All she's asking for is, in my mind, is a simple sign ahead. Slow down, large bump ahead. Something simple, not very expensive, to solve the current problem before the blacktop goes in. And the other solution I know is more elaborate for the hill, but at least you can take care of that part.
This is Olivia Kalos again for 4775 Anderson. I feel like overall on this item for the planning commission, you heard and you will be addressing it when it comes forward. So I think myself and a few of our neighbors will be calling the city to deal with this side issue that is not the planning commission's issue tonight. So I do feel heard on what I had asked.
Okay, I think we've heard quite a few good comments. I think personally, I think the city has taken the comments seriously and is looking into them, so it's good to hear that. But I think we're starting to get in that kind of rehashing thing again here, just kind of going around in circles. So I'm going to ask that we go ahead and I'm going to ask for a motion on item 5D. From the commission, do I have any motion on item 5D?
This is Commissioner Lundy, and I move to approve item 5D.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Colquist will second.
And so we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, no opposition. So the motion passes. So we can move on to item 5E.
And actually, since we have a lot of people online regarding that one, that will be going to the November 2nd City Council meeting at 6:30 p.m.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm sorry. So this is actually item 5E before us. This is an application by JP Holding LLC for a preliminary and final planned unit development for 18 townhomes and a 72 unit apartment building for a total of 90 units on a 10-acre site located at 50XX Maple Grove Road. The property is located in an R3 zoning district. And I apologize because 50XX is a very vague location. But what I'm going to do is share a map with you to see that. And I apologize, I'm looking for it. There we go. Great, thank you. So what I have up in front of us is a location map of the proposed site. You can see City Hall, which is located in the northwest corner of the intersection of Maple Grove Road. They say northwest corner of Maple Grove Road and LeBake Road. Last year, we had received an application for the corner lot. That would be the northeast corner, 10 acres of Maple Grove Road and LeBake Road. That site has since been approved. At that time, it was approved for the construction of an assisted living facility on that 10-acre property. Before us this evening is the adjacent 10-acre site that runs primarily north-south on this. This site has some different elements associated with it. This cleared area that I'm trying to blow up on, that is the location of the city's existing sanitary sewer line. The area just to The east of that, primarily through here, is an existing wetland on this property. And then as you get to the north end of the property, this is the existing power line corridor that's in place right now. The proposed development is proposed to be located in between those elements. And I apologize, I'm looking for the actual development plan right now. And I'm failing, so if people can bear with me here. There we go. So this is a proposed development before us. As I mentioned, Maple Grove Road is located on the left-hand side of your screen. There's a proposed public roadway that would run north-south that connects to Maple Grove Road. That portion of roadway, right as I'm looking at that stub there, that is a stub that provides access to that previously approved 10-acre site for the assisted living building. Before us this evening is the construction of this public right-of-way on a 66-foot right-of-way running north-south, which is generally on top of the city's existing sanitary sewer line. The applicant is proposing the construction of a private roadway. That is the C-shaped road right here in front of you. That roadway would provide access for 18 townhomes. Those are comprised of 2 triplex buildings and 3 quad style buildings. What's been shown here on Outlot A and Outlot B, that is the existing wetland associated with this property. In Outlot C here, and as you can see the blue lines I'm trying to scroll in on, that is existing wetland on that property. Between that wetland and the public roadway is a proposed pond for this development, one of 2 ponds for that. As you move to the north, basically between that private roadway and those townhomes is a proposed 72-unit apartment building. That is bordered on the northern part of the site by that existing power line corridor. The applicant, as part of this, is proposing a public sidewalk connecting to the existing sidewalk on Maple Grove Road that would extend northwards into the site, as well as cover and provide access to these townhomes here, and then over to the proposed apartments. That sidewalk is also going to provide a future connection to the Munger Trail, which is proposed to be within this power line corridor located here to the north. That trail at this point is not, it's conceptual and location has not been planned, but this is, the sidewalk is envisioned as ability to connect that. So if someone wanted to traverse north and south, they could within that public sidewalk. That sidewalk is not the Munger Trail. This is rather a sidewalk connection to it. What I'm going to show right now is the proposed image of the townhome units associated with this development. This is a conceptual look at these 4plexes for that. There would be a basically at-level garage, driveway garage with a living unit on the 2nd floor, and then they comprise of the kitchen, bedroom, etc., and bedrooms located on the 3rd floor. I'm going to share with you potential floor plan elevations for each one of those as well. This is actually the 2nd floor that has the dining room, living room, kitchen area with it. This is envisioned to be the upper level floor, basically the bedroom units associated with that, minimum of 3 bedrooms on these townhomes. And then lastly, this is a proposed potential floor plan for that ground level elevation, showing the 2-car garage, that foyer, and stairs upwards to the upper levels. The ability for an owner to finish or fill out some existing floor space on that first level, potential optional bedroom as well as a rec room that way. Getting back to this plan, then as we move north to the proposed apartment building, we'd had a neighborhood meeting last Wednesday. At that point, at that time, the applicant had indicated that they were going to be looking at a potential flat roof structure for that apartment building. The applicant has now since come in with a flat roof building, which I'm showing right here. The height of that unit is 35 feet in height, which meets the underlying R3 zoning for structure height. This property has been looked at quite a bit from a traffic standpoint as well as an engineering standpoint. As reiterating with the previous application, this is a planned unit development. This is an allowed basically overlay that can be associated with zoning districts within the city, including the R3. Once again, this allows the ability to set different density for a site as well as setbacks associated with it. As I mentioned, the applicant has worked quite a bit with their engineer to come up with grading plans, stormwater plans associated with this project. Not only from this, what's called the BMP1, that pond there, but also this blue line located in the corner of the parking lot that is envisioned to be an underground detention basin that would handle the apartment building here. This property has been reviewed by the Hermantown Technical Evaluation Panel. Initially, the applicant had been proposing to put structures within this wetland area here that you see in Outlot C. The Hermantown TEP guided them otherwise to leave that wetland natural, keep the drainage conveyance as it was, just have a crossing associated right here for that wetland, as well as some wetland areas right through here that are remnants from the sanitary sewer work that had been done a number of years ago by the city. At this time, the applicant would potentially be platting this property as for individual lots for these triplexes and quads, and then the creation of different lots for each one of these structures, i.e. the apartment, as well as an outlots A, B, and C for the development. As I mentioned previously, the PUD allows for the different setbacks associated with it. The applicant is proposing a minimum of 25-foot setback from this private road system that would still allow for the potential to park 2 cars within that driveway if need be, providing 30-foot rear yard setbacks, and then 12-foot aggregate between these units, particularly as you look at this units 11 and 12 and 7 and 8. Obviously, when you get into the corners, we get into the larger setbacks at that point. This project has been shared with St. Louis County regarding the traffic. This was a traffic study was performed for this property that was submitted to Mr. Vic Lund at St. Louis County. He said that there were no required modifications to Maple Grove Road that would be needed to be able to serve a project like this. Likewise, this project has been sent over to the Hermantown School District. To date, we have not received any comments from them. It is envisioned in the apartment complex that these would be a mixture of studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units for that property. There would be underground parking that would come off of that city roadway into this development, and then there'd be surface parking spaces as well. The applicant's proposing 56 underground parking spaces and 72 surface parks for 128 total parking units on this property. As I mentioned, this would be a mix of studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom, primarily with the studios and 1-bedrooms comprising the majority of this proposed apartment. The applicant would be able to connect to the city utilities by way of that existing sanitary sewer main, as well as a water that is served under this property and the adjacent property. So they're able to tie into city utilities as well. As I mentioned, stormwater is handled on site by way of the surface pond as well as the underground ponding for it. I'll just share the last image again with you of the overall site rendering showing the property. This property is set back approximately, I believe is almost 400 to 500 feet back from Maple Grove Road by way of this existing wetland that would remain in place within Outlot A there. As I'd mentioned, that the triplexes, the quads, as well as an apartment are basically tucked in between that wetland as well as an existing power line corridor to the north. At that point, it concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any comments or questions from the commission. The applicant is in the audience this evening here as well.
Hey, Commissioner Lundin with a question.
Yes, sir.
Is this market rate housing? Any idea what the?
I will ask the applicant to answer that question.
Yes, Mr. Lundin, that is market rate housing.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
And then for sale units on the townhomes.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple, I don't know, questions, I guess, on this. One is, I know when we did the project adjacent to that, there were some concerns about traffic. And I know you said they looked at the traffic, but it just, I guess it's more of a comment than anything. It just seems like a lot more traffic on that corner, which I know was a concern with the last project. So, and then my question is, do we have something that kind of shows the location of that project on the adjacent property? Is it going to be just like towering over this, or is it offset a little bit? And then how do they compare in height?
Sure, I'm going to go back to that rendering. I'm going to look at that here again. I may have to look at a couple different photos. I believe this line right here that you see, that's running vertically on your screen, that is the northerly property line of that 10-acre site with that assisted living.
Okay.
That structure is proposed to be set back in this corner of the project as it relates to it. So that that building is not immediately adjacent to any type of housing structure, as those are located further to the east. Does that help you, Mr. Zimmerman, that way?
Yeah, it does help some. I mean, it still feels kind of like just an extension of that project, which was scaled down because it was felt it was too large to start with. Yeah, I guess that's more of a comment than a question.
So I have another one, Lundin here. What's the target market for these units? Are we looking at young families, young couples, singles, seniors, or all of the above? And the reason for my question is, at what point do we start to put a strain on the school system?
Mr. Talego, if you're able to answer that, I believe you've done a market study.
Yes, we have. Am I able to share a screen?
Mr. Joe Wickland, are you on the line still?
Yeah,
Is there a way for Mr. Talego to share a presentation?
yeah, if you'd like to make him the host for a second, and if he can then hand it back when he's done with that, he should be able to.
Okay, so I click on Talego, make host.
And then James, you should be able to share.
I think I just made you the host, James.
Okay. If you can see that.
Yes.
So, Mr. Lundin, we did perform a market study. It was a very extensive study. And what we found in this market is that there's a shortage of about 995 units in the Hermantown and Duluth market. The study is the demand for this site in particular for the apartments alone is between 120 and 140 units. And the demographics are suggested that we stay at studio, 1-bedroom apartments, and 2-bedroom. So a large part of the family structure won't be in this building, mainly single couples either way, but not many kids for this type of project. And then out of the 995 units, we did not capture all of the senior housing demand with the corner parcel. And that independent living demand from the seniors is still 500 plus for the Hermantown area. So we could envision many seniors for this project, as well as single couples. If that answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I think, Mr. Talego, at this point, unless you had other screen content to share, if you could make myself the host again, as City of Hermantown.
Yep. Okay.
Any more questions from the planning and zoning commissioners?
Sam Clark, Planning and Zoning Commission. In the interest of time, I have a couple comments and a few concerns, and I would be interested in public feedback. One, I would like to reiterate that I think Hermantown, specifically Eric, works very hard to help with any project that comes through. I've been quite impressed with that. The planned unit development, I don't think is bad in and of itself. It's actually can be quite a powerful piece for future development opportunities. A few of my concerns on this specific parcel. One is previous resident non-approval with the property just to the east. In my opinion, it's not consistent with the comprehensive plan, especially keeping more of a suburban character and preserving the critical and natural features of the area. And then my third concern is just the precedent in the area. I mentioned this with the senior living facility, while not bad in and of itself. Now as a second phase on another 10-acre parcel. One of my concerns would be, as the area continues to develop, that this might not be more, it's not necessarily a comprehensive plan issue, as I don't think it follows that, but maybe the issue with larger planned unit development such as this would maybe be, the city of Hermantown maybe would be in their best interest to look to a new comprehensive plan, or maybe some more public input into things like this. So that's kind of a lot, but in the interest of time, I figured very interested in public comments. Those are my thoughts and opinions on this agenda item.
Okay, do we have any more questions from the commission before we open up the public? All righty, we will open this up, item 5E for public discussion at 9:41 p.m. Again, I'll remind you, if you have a comment or question, please state your name and address.
This is Michael Copy at 5124 Beaver Creek Road.
And I'd first like to just mention that, this meeting is getting pretty late. We're almost 10 o'clock here. We had a lot of residents that did want to comment, and I've noticed that they've now left because of the time, I think. And I think something of this importance needs to have another session to have public input, because you're really not going to get it here tonight at 10 o'clock at night. So, but my input is that we've already given you the input on this. This is just a rehatch of what we saw on the adjacent property. The public has spoken about this kind of development. This is way overdeveloped. It's very similar to the other properties. If you look at the development that you were looking at just prior to this one has probably got less acreage than the other property, and it's probably got 5 times the density that the other property had. And residents there were saying that they were concerned about the number of people in that area. So again, we're looking at something that's, way overdone. And the residents have already spoken about this. I just can't understand why the city is bringing this forward again when, what do we have to do? What has to happen for you to be able to hear what the people of Hermantown want in this area? This does not fit. 3 stories is way overdone. The density is way over. There's so many different aspects of this that just does not fit this area. And so I just don't understand why we're even looking at this level.
My name is Jared Hinks, 4128 Levake Road. I have a couple questions. I won't say them all at once so we can keep it organized here. My first question is, what is the building height of the multiplex?
That's 35 feet.
All right, and has there been an analysis done on the terrain there? Because where it looks like that multiplex is going to go, there is a hill there.
Is there any sound?
Are you there?
We can hear you. Yes, sir.
Oh, I was saying, has there been an analysis done on the change in elevation to where the multiplex is considered going? Because there is a hill there, so it'd be 35 feet on top of whatever increase of elevation, and that'd be in direct line of sight of the properties surrounding me as well as mine.
I guess to answer that question is yes, there have been preliminary engineering plans to a certain extent that have been done on this. I'm not quite sure, James, if that identifies a finished floor elevation yet at this point.
Seeing everybody's muted.
Why is that?
Yeah.
Michael, we can actually hear you still, and people have the ability to mute themselves. It's something at that point, but we are hearing Jared's comments just fine.
Hey, Eric, just a quick pause, Eric. Why don't you give me back the hosting ability and I can chat with Mike offline.
Yep. Sure, sounds good. Thank you.
And I apologize. Jared, we'll circle back on your answer again in just a moment.
All right, sounds good.
Jared, James Talego here. Thanks for your question. Just to answer your question, we did do grading plans, and the plan actually calls for cutting that grade 4 to 6 feet down.
Call him up on the
All right, thank you. I guess I could move right on to my next question is, you said that each triplex, quadplex would be cut into their own lots. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so what percentage of the lot is covered by the structure on each lot?
You didn't do anything.
Well, we cut the lots for HOA purposes to give the townhomes ownership.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering because the
Is Connie
Hermantown
speaking?
R3 residential city requirement 515.04 says that a structure cannot cover
We have no audio at all.
more than
Mr.
35% of the lot. So I mean, if you're breaking those down into individual lots and a structure covers more than 35% of that, isn't that going against that city code?
Actually, Mr. Jared, can I stop you right there? I need some technical assistance from Mr. Wickland. I'm trying to give him over control of this, maybe to help rectify some of the sound. Maybe just from other people online, are you being able to hear us? Maybe just a quick thumbs up from the people I see. I'm getting nods from a lot of people. So Mr. Copy, you may have issues at your end. But I don't know. But
I've sent Mike a chat directly through this, that the issue's on their end. So I've muted them and unmuted them a few times. But something definitely has changed on their side of things, not ours.
Okay, so Jared, I apologize for the interruption. If you wouldn't mind, maybe starting over again and seeing if I can help out with any questions, or Mr. Talego.
Sure. Basically, what I heard is that the triplex, quadplex lots are going to be turned into their own individual lots. And I was just looking at the proposal on the map. It looks like each one of those structures would cover more than 35% of a lot if they were broken into those
Do
lots.
we have sound?
Yes, Mike, you do.
Which would violate 515.04 of the city requirements in R3 zoning. Just wondered if anybody could expand on that.
Jared, Eric Johnson here. Per the planned unit development, we have the ability to work with the different setbacks, densities, et cetera, associated on a lot. And that's what's before us this evening, just like similar to that previous project where the setbacks were less than the underlying R3. That's what's being proposed this evening as well. And that's part of the preliminary, or the planned unit development process.
Okay, I hear you there. With that, I would just like to say that I think these rules and residential requirements in the section 515 were written for a reason, and I would just plead with the commissioners to consider these.
Jared, same for planning and zoning. If you could just reiterate the last thing you said, I think everyone was muted.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, I don't think the problem's on my end. I was just making sure. I was just saying I'd like to ask the commissioners to consider that the section 515 R3 residential codes were written for a reason, and changing them and stuff like that does affect residents such as myself, and I just like that to be considered. I have another question if nobody else does. Will any of these, with a triplex, or excuse me, the quadplex and triplex, will they be able to be rented out, or are they owned?
The city does not have a rental property ordinance. So they could have the ability to be either for sale or rental properties.
And just to reiterate, our target is for sale units, and our starting price on these, we're looking at 300,000 to start. We do see a large need for new homes in the area. Just recently, I was looking at how many new homes are on the market today in Hermantown, and that would be 0. And the last one that was well over 500,000. So we think by introducing a product like this that is set 500 feet off the road to really offer that privacy and the price point, it's a real advantage for any future buyers.
And this has similar stylings to that previous application in the fact that this is a housing product that the city does not currently have. And it foresees this, particularly with the triplex and quads, as a potential opportunity to introduce something else at a price range that we currently don't have here in the city.
Has the commission considered 515.03.16, which states that condos, townhomes, duplexes have no more than 2 units in one building?
Once again, Jared, this is a planned unit development that supersedes that R3 section. This is essentially an overlay for the R3 zoning, which allows changes to density, setbacks, etc., for a particular property.
Right. So let me generalize my question. Has the commission considered all of the sections of the R3 residential code that they will be violating by overlaying them? I just say this because it is quite a few, and I just want to know that the commission is aware of all these.
Okay, sure.
Just need to point out that a planned unit development does not violate any zoning regulations of an R3 zone in and of itself, because it does, like Eric explained earlier, supersede those regulations. They're 2 different animals.
All right, that clarifies it for me. Thank you. I have one last question. You guys make a recommendation to city council, and are they the ones that vote on this, or will the vote tonight move it forward?
The city council is the approving body for any planned unit development. The planning commission is essentially an advisory board that would either recommend or not recommend a project move forward to the city council. So the city council is the group that would hear this again. There would also be a opportunity for public comment at that time, and then the council would be able to weigh all that information in and make the decision at that point.
Okay, then I would save my comments for that later date and time. Just one last question. The properties at 4114, 4122, 4128, and 4134, this development will all basically be in direct view of their backyards. Is the commission aware of that?
At least the commission members have these plans that have been placed before us here this evening.
All right, and then just to add on that, will there be street lamps along the road that cuts in?
That's a question for Mr. Talego, if they've come to that point or not yet. And that's rather a detailed piece at this point, but
Yeah, we did not discuss that piece to it.
Actually, there will be, it is in the plan. Sorry, this is the landscape architect for the project.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Trish.
Proposed on the plan. And you can zoom in on and I could show you if you wanted, Eric.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to ask Mr. Wickland if he's available to either give me the control back. I don't have the ability to access that drawing at this point.
Let me see if I can do it quickly from here.
I could even
Okay.
turn it up on the screen.
Yeah, go ahead.
I didn't
appreciate
hear,
it.
did she just say yes to the street lamp?
Yeah, Jared, short answer, yes, and
He
then
did.
Trish will show you here in just a second.
Okay, sorry, this is a little dizzy. So, on, all along this drive and then all in along wherever there's sidewalks, there will be lighting proposed. There'll be more spaced lighting, so that you see the green bubbles here, but the brown things next to them are the street lights. They kind of look like stars.
Thanks, Trish.
Sorry.
And Jared, to at least expound on that a little bit, if there is indeed happens to be street lighting, should this move forward, the city could work with the applicant that these are downcast shielded type of lights that shine the light down to the ground and not getting into light pollution type of aspects.
I appreciate that. That was kind of my concern there. But with the location of my property, I basically have a direct view to the building site of the multiplex, and the light pollution just from the apartment windows would be more of a concern of mine. But as you stated earlier, I think most of my concerns, it's more appropriate to be addressed at the city council meeting than here.
Hey, I think moving along here, if there are any more questions, the public will have their chance to express those at the city council meeting. So Eric, I think we're good to move along here.
This is JP Brooks, 4194 LeVake Road. I just had a quick comment. To piggyback on what Mr. Clark said earlier about the comprehensive plan, in situations like this, I think it's pretty important to again review that comprehensive plan. And when we went through this about 10 months ago, again, I think it might be advantageous for all of us to rewrite some of the aspects of that. But reviewing that again, there is mention of the importance of phased development in Hermantown. And the way that I'm looking at this, with quite a bit of public outcry, we did approve a 110 unit assisted living facility on the corner of LeVake and Maple Grove. We haven't broken ground on that yet. So we don't know what the full impact on the community or the traffic in that surrounding area is, but yet we're moving forward with what I would consider phase 2 of that development. So I think, again, to Mike's point, we've recently gone through this. The community has kind of spoken. We've compromised on the 110 unit. And I think, again, it would just be wise for us to, again, look back at that comprehensive plan, reassess what phase development means to us, and maybe take a little breather here to understand what that structure, what that building, what that assisted living facility is going to do to that corner and the community as a whole.
Mr. Brooks, Mayor Boucher here. Your points are well taken. I just wanted to let you know that the comprehensive plan is currently under review, and we do that every 10 years. And
okay.
It has reached that point right now.
Can you talk a little bit about, I don't know if this is the right forum, but how are we gathering community input on the new comprehensive plan?
The process has just been started by city staff.
Okay.
And there will be a point where the public input is available on that. But that's something that's built into the process, but we're not at that point yet. We're at that 10-year window where it is 10 years old, so it needs to be reviewed. And that is characteristically done with public input through a process. But it's not done over a month or 2 months. It's more like over a year or two.
Okay. Well, and I would assume even with revisions, that the term phased or thoughtful development would work its way in there. And I guess that's all that I'm looking for here as well.
I'll bring that to the discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna close the public hearing at 10:01 PM. Do we have any comments or motions from the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Eric, just to clarify, Commissioner Colquist here, are we, as a zoning committee here, Commission, are we responsible for deciding whether this PUD fits and follows all the zoning regulations, or whether it fits in the community? Or would that, I guess the second part of that question, if it fits in the community, is that more for city council to decide?
You know, honestly, Mr. Colquist, all of the above. You as the advisory board, both look at from a zoning standpoint, does it make sense that way? Does it generally fit within the community as well? I mean, those are all things to come into play. I mean, since it is a planned unit development, and the fact that the planned unit development is able to set setbacks, density, et cetera, by the fact that the city ordinance allows for planned unit developments in R3 district, that, you know, yes, technically it does meet the zoning, you know, the spirit of the zoning ordinance that way, and that a planned unit development isn't allowed use in there. But then you dive down into the details of same thing, setbacks, density, et cetera, that you as a board or commission, I guess, what are your thoughts that we're trying to get here, and your comfort level with this planned unit development as presented this evening, if you think this fits into, you know, your definition and what works for A, this community, and B, for this site, and by taking all these things into account.
Okay, thank you.
Sam Clark, Planning and Zoning, I guess, based on the information this evening and my original concerns, I would personally motion to deny. And I know there's not really an applicable way to do it, but the last comprehensive plan is from 2001 that the public has access to. So after the original meeting that I was a part of, I don't feel like this planned unit development in and of itself in this location is appropriate. So my personal motion would be to deny application 5E as stated.
Eric, I apologize. I'm not sure. I guess I haven't had this situation before. I guess that would be the same as a motion for approval. So we just look for a second and vote.
That is correct. You'll ask
Okay.
for a second, and then you'll take a vote, assuming there's a second. If that is the will of the planning commission, then at that point it is a moot point. The process ends right there. If there is not, I guess for lack of better, an affirmative negative vote, then we would start back over again and look for a motion to approve. So the next step is for you to look for a second for the denial of Mr. Clark's.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I will second the motion.
All righty then. We'll take a vote. All in
You
favor
may
of
want to take a roll
denying-
call vote.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All righty. One second.
And for purposes of clarity, Mr. Zimmerman, the call you're asking people to vote yes to deny for recording purposes in the vote that's about to take. So if the council wants to deny it, they will vote yes. If they are interested in a different motion, they will vote no. So it is a motion to deny. So it'll be yes vote to deny, just for clarity.
Okay. All right. We'll start with Shannon.
Yes.
Yes. Samuel?
Yes.
Tracy?
No.
Corey?
No.
Um, and
And you're next.
I am voting yes. So that means do we have to have a certain percentage or?
No,
Nope.
the
No, you
motion
do
Who
not.
else, who else votes? Does anybody else vote?
that's it.
Okay. So we got 3 yeses and 2 nos.
You have 3 denials.
Correct.
And just to help out, that was Sam Clark who motioned. And then Shannon.
Shannon
as the
seconded.
Thank you. So that is correct, this application was denied on a 3-2 vote. Great. Thank you, Mr. Zimmerman.
Um,
I believe we're on to continuing business, correct?
That is correct. Number
Oh my
6.
any continuing business?
No, there is none from staff.
So is this the point where we do ask for, oh, never mind, I'm not there yet.
You know,
I said-
actually,
Any news, new,
Mr. Zimmerman, I'm going to back up on continuing business, just to give planning and zoning a quick update. If you recall, a couple months back, I made a presentation about the airport zoning associated with the JASB, the Joint Airport Zoning Board. There was a public hearing held by JASB towards the end of September. I was attended by approximately 8 to 10 people. There were some additional comments heard and presented by the public. The JASB board and their consultants are taking those into account and are going to be working to continue with the airport zoning associated with the airport and the overlay for it.
okay, thank you. Any new business?
None for me.
Sam Clark, no new business.
Any further, what do we got? Any communications we need to go over?
No, none.
Commission member reports. I have no report. Corey Colquist,
No report.
Tracy Lundeen,
No report.
Samuel Clark,
No report.
and Shannon.
No report.
No. Mayor Boucher, do you have any?
Nothing from me.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I am looking for a motion to close the meeting at 10:10 PM.
Lundin makes the motion.
Colquist with the second.
Meeting is closed. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, Eric,
Yes, sir.
while I have everyone here,
You
any
do have to
suggestions-
take a vote on the closing.
Oh, thank you,
Oh.
Mayor.
Okay.
Aye.
All in favor of closing the meeting? Aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed? All righty, meeting's closed.
Mr. Talego, if you want, you can give me a phone call if there's something specific that you want to
okay.
talk to.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
I was just gonna ask the commission, moving forward with this property, what they would like to see, especially the 3 that voted against it, what they would like to see for that 10 acres. Because we will pursue something on it.
And I see Mr. Mayor is looking to,
Well, I don't think that's an appropriate question for the commission. The commission is tasked with following certain procedures.
Sure, sure.
I think it's something you can discuss with Eric.
Okay.
Come up with some kind of plan, but it's not an appropriate question for the body.
Okay, understood. All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for the late evening. We appreciate all your input and sticking with us this late in the evening. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Night.